welcome to another episode of Entrepreneurs Creating OMG Moment. I am so excited for our guest today. We have Carrie with us, and she is going to be talking about getting to these OMG moments and what it takes to overcome that and how we get there. Carrie, it's so great to have you on the show.
Hi, Tammy. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here and talking about my favorite topic.
Yay! Well, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started with this.
Sure. So, I'm a stage director and a storytelling strategist, which means that right now I work in the world of what story you want to tell and why, and then the how, the actual getting on stage or having that conversation with whoever you need to have it to share your story to move forward and achieve your success. Yeah, it's been a long journey to get here, and you might be like, oh, well, how does stage directing tie into public speaking? Seems kind of obvious on some in some ways, but in the corporate world, maybe a little bit less. And but I've just realized how similar creatives and entrepreneurs really are at their heart.
Yes. Well, and I think a lot of people don't realize how creative they are. I remember I always used to tell myself, like, I am not creative, I'm not creative. And then I just realized I'm just not, I thought of creative as like artistic.
Right.
And I realized my creativity came in different ways. Right?
Yeah,
So,
right?
yes, and coming up with ideas and being able to strategize, those kind of things. And so once I realized that creativity comes in all forms, I stopped saying I'm not creative. I
Yeah.
love that. So, with what you do, tell us a little bit about what's an OMG moment that you've had in your business or in your life that's gotten you to this point. And the way we describe OMG moments here is that something that's big and bold that helped you step outside of your comfort zone, that helped you get to where you are. Something that at the time you thought, I don't know if I can do that, or that seems a little scary, or something that just excited you and you finally got to do it. What's some of those OMG moments for you?
I'll start with one that set me on a path to where I am today, of both the storytelling and stage directing, where those kind of intersect, which is discovering a play script that I wrote in a box of, elementary school junk in my mom's basement. So I wrote this script when I was about 10 years old called Little Red Riding Hood Says No to Smoking. Yeah. Little Red Riding Hood saved herself from the big bad world of wolves and smoking and lung cancer at that point, right? But what it told me was that I was a storyteller at a very young age.
Mhm.
And, I, like so many artists and creatives and entrepreneurs, struggled with my why, of who I was meant to be. I had this voice inside that kept leading me in certain directions. And then, I'd hear other people's voices or like, societal voices saying, no, don't go that way, don't go that way. So I felt like, like Little Red Riding Hood, I kind of had to take my own path and get on my own journey. But finding that script, holding it in my hands, really gave me an OMG moment of like, oh my gosh, after decades of questioning myself, I have evidence in my hand of the fact that I've been on the right path for my whole life, as far as I could tell. And yeah, so that then led me to through a bunch of smaller events that led me to the writing of my book, which was definitely another extremely pivotal moment of my life where I didn't know what the content of the book was going to be before I started the process of writing it. So
Mhm.
when you talked about having that kind of leap and the net will appear moment of like, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna do this thing, that was definitely a big one for me.
Awesome. I love that. And it's funny, you said you started your book without knowing what the content and everything was going to be. I was similar. I wrote my book and never thought I was going to be an author, like wasn't even on my list. Like, we would go to these events and there's a speaker up there and they're like, who here wants to raise to write a book? And like 90% of the audience raised their hand. I was never one. I was like, no, I'm good. Don't need to write a book. And I went through a speaker's program that included writing a book.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I like really became clear on like the message I wanted and what my POV was that the book started to come together. And once it did, it like just flowed. And so when you finally like got clear on I'm going to write a book and some of it, what was the process for you?
It was first, so I did know that I had a book in me.
Mhm.
In fact, I remember writing a book when I was very, very small as well, not just a play. Um, and I have like outlines, like dozens of outlines of books that I wanted to write over the years. But the program the cohort that I went through with the writing cohort, they really asked the question of, what are you curious about? What do you want to learn about? And what do you want to find the answers to? What questions do you have? And that really helped me to come at the writing process from a sense of curiosity.
Mhm.
And my question was, how can I help people tell their own story to help them, you know, in moving forward, right? And that means different things to different people. But what
Yeah.
I saw was looking at being a stage director for many years and helping people to tell their stories or helping a playwright put their story on stage, how that process can be so healing and it can
Mhm.
really change hearts and minds. And that applies to like a good TED Talk as well, right? That
Yeah.
somebody gets on stage and they have an objective. They really want to teach you something or inspire you. And so I started doing some research on the elements that we need for a good, dynamic, engaging story, but also bringing yourself into that process, and not just keeping the information at a distance.
Yes, and that's so hard for some people, right? They want to keep themselves at the distance. They don't want to talk about their, things because they don't want to get it out there. And so I know a lot of what you help people with is overcoming that. And so what do you see are some of the biggest challenges that people face when they're trying to tell their story or trying to get that message out there?
Well, the first one for sure is vulnerability, right?
Mm.
I don't want to get emotional. I definitely don't want to cry. I don't want to share things about myself that make me feel strongly because we are taught to be professional, keep it contained, keep your emotions under control, don't show weakness through tears or anger, any of these things. And I've found that 99.9% of the time, you really have to kind of lean into those emotions because that's where we can really connect with people.
Yes, absolutely. And that connection is what draws people to you.
Right.
It can also be the thing that pushes the wrong people away, which is a good thing. And some people don't realize that's a
Right.
good thing. But being
Right.
able to draw people to you. So I love that, getting overcoming the vulnerability.
Yeah.
I know you also talk about imposter syndrome.
hmm
So what are the things that you've discovered when it comes to imposter syndrome that are really holding people back, and what does it really mean?
So, imposter syndrome, I look at in kind of a very simple way, but it's very hard to overcome because imposter syndrome rears its head in very unlikely situations. We all deal with it. And the reason that we deal with imposter syndrome is that entrepreneurs in particular, we're doing something new that we've never done before. We don't have that confidence of the experience, right? So I encourage people to be a detective and like mount a case for why you are the right person to be answering that particular problem or creating that particular product or service for people, right? Because you are uniquely qualified. So for me, the secret is really about what makes you truly original and an individual because you can't be an imposter if you're really being yourself,
Yeah.
right? The definition of imposter is trying to be something that you're not, right?
Mhm.
So the more you can tap into that individuality, the less you're going to feel like an imposter because you're going to say, well, I'm the only one. I had a job recently that was asking for a theater professor at a bakery, that was a fellowship program for military veteran spouses and caregivers. Okay, so I am a, or my husband's retired now, but military spouse, theater professor. I had the unique qualities. I'm a little bit of a baker, but not an expert, but that wasn't super part of it. But like I had a unique combination of qualities that made me uniquely qualified to do that particular job. So I didn't feel like an imposter because I just said, well, what are my qualifications? And, here's my list. So whenever I started to feel those feelings of imposter syndrome, I just went back to who I really am and said, I'm uniquely qualified for this. So let's go.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love the uniquely qualified, right? We're all uniquely qualified in different ways, and
Yeah.
that's what makes it unique, right? You have something in each of you that is unique, that is, brings out who you are. And so
Right.
it's so important to know what those things are.
Right.
One of the things I love to have our people do is also like create these like brag books of like, what have you done? And you can
Yes.
always reference back to this and say, okay, these are like my top 100 things, and just they don't have to mean anything to anyone else, but to you they were important. And when you feel that and you're like recognize that you have done a lot, it helps to overcome some of those confidence issues and feelings that you're not enough to go out there and do that. So
Yeah,
love
and the
that.
other thing is that sometimes there is an industry standard or, something that your job, your ideal position requires, right? Experience-wise or skill-wise. And that's a really great time to look at those qualifications and think, okay, what do I need in order to overcome this imposter syndrome? Do I need that certificate or to take that class or, or to work hard to get that particular job title, right? And those are totally
Yeah.
valid as well.
Yeah, and it's a great reminder. Like people who come out, I work with a lot of people coming off corporate, going into entrepreneurship, and a lot of times people try to do a complete 180 from what they currently do or what their expertise is in, right? Try to
Right.
start something completely new. It's a complete 180. And it's hard to establish your credibility in that area when it's so different than what everyone knows you from. But when we
Yeah.
can take like a 1 to 2 degree difference and target that, people already know you for that. They already trust you for that. If you're going in a complete 180, it's like, okay, how do you go build that credibility, like you were saying? And, that can be you got to work with X number of people in order to prove the value, in order
Right.
to prove what you're doing and the worth and the value that you're providing so that you can share that. So I love that. It's like the tangible and like what you can do to overcome it, but also the mindset pieces, because I always believe there's two sides to any when you're trying to make progress, right? It's the strategy and it's your mindset. And you can have one without the other, but it will not work very long.
Exactly.
So you
Yeah.
need to have both in place. So I love that. And share with us like what's some OMG moments you plan on creating? We were talking pre about something you have coming out, which is exciting. I'm sure that's
Yeah.
an OMG moment. What's something coming up for you that is going to be an exciting and be that big and bold thing you're doing next?
Sure. So I heard a lot of feedback after the book was published about people ingesting the material and really enjoying it, but not necessarily knowing what steps to take next. And so I created a journal to go along with the book. It could be separate or use it alongside, but it's really meant to help people walk through those steps of getting to know themselves a little bit better, to take those moments to think about where they're headed or where where they want to go. And I do that more in a, what are your core values? What do you believe in? And how do you want to, what environments do you want to work in? What audience do you want to serve? Kind of questions than a job title, which I feel like that's one of the reasons that so many people are going into working for themselves and, entrepreneurial situations because they can't find a good match with their values.
Mhm.
Right. So I've had a lot of really great feedback, and that's going to be published soon on Amazon,
Yay.
for people who just, want a little bit of clarity. And that's created some more clarity for me too, because I don't know about you, but once you're going through these steps yourself, you're also having those clarifying moments as well. So there'll be some digital courses being offered as well in the future, and hopefully more amazing conversations with people like you who have these audiences who would love to put together some of the elements of their story to have a little more clarity and be able to understand why they have those feelings of like, oh, there's something more, or, I'm not totally comfortable here for some reason. I want to make a
Mhm.
change. I totally agree with you that some of those are very small steps, right? There might be a long-term plan
Yeah.
instead of the big. So I feel like I'm like that too. I'm having like a lot of those really smaller, oh my, oh my God, like I just realized that I need to write a journal for this. I just realized that the next step is to get that content out there to walk people through those steps
Yes.
because it's a really great opportunity for self-reflection.
Ooh, so good. Congratulations on getting that out there. And it's so critical. And I think it's a good reminder for everyone. Like it's critical to listen to the feedback you're getting, right?
Right.
So great job, Carrie, in like hearing the feedback you got from the book. And it's like, okay, we need a little more to help us through this. I had a very similar experience when I published my book, and I have a lot of exercises in there.
Yeah,
And
me too.
yeah, before I even published it, I had some of my mastermind partners read through it, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is so amazing!" But one of them was like, "I wanted like a workbook to take
Yeah,
me through it," and
yeah.
hence we created the workbook, which I have behind me. So if you're watching the video, the workbook and the book that go along with each other to help you through the exercises to give you that clarity. And I love that you took that, and I think it's a good reminder for everybody. Like if you've created something, whether it's a book or a course or your program, whatever it is you have out there, what are people saying to you now that would be helpful to expand it? It's not about always going out and creating something completely new and reinventing the wheel.
Right.
It's like, how can you just enhance what you have? I love that.
Well, and also people learn at different speeds. We're all
Yeah.
in different places. So somebody might pick up the book and be like, I got this. I totally, I don't need anything else. And then other people might be more towards the beginning of trying to make a big pivot and really want some more time because they're not as clear about where their life is taking them and, what's going on. Like a lot of people I talk to are getting ready for retirement from their first career, or they're in a place where they're like, I'm ready for a big change. And then other people are like, no, something doesn't feel quite right, but I really need this job, for whatever reason. And they want to start like a side gig, right? But they're not sure like what that's going to be. So I think really taking a moment to think about not just what the feedback is, but who it's coming from, and that their needs might be at different places. So kind of breaking it down, because I'm like you, I have a lot of exercises, and I feel like that's helpful for people who kind of want to move quickly or have more of a sense or have done more of this work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's one additional tip or tool you can share with everyone that's going to help them as they're trying to figure out their origin story and help them to move forward?
So, we were talking earlier about, sharing something with your guests, which I would like to do, which is to offer everyone a Vuja Day exercise, which is an exercise that I've developed to particularly help people get to those aha or OMG moments. So, Vuja Day is a term that was coined by George Carlin as the opposite of deja vu. So, it's the sensation of something very familiar, like your drive to work, for example, and one day something happens and it feels completely strange. Like you never noticed that building or that billboard or that group of flowers before, right? And then it sets you kind of in a little bit of a different mindset and your perspective shifts. So maybe, for example, I'll ask you to pick out a color in your room, something bright, like maybe, the color of your lovely yellow book there. And then look in your own living space to see that color of yellow. Like, where does it show up? I've got a couple of books behind me, right? Or like up in a piece of art or something. And then you're going to notice that all around you, right? So that's kind of the concept of Vuja Day. Well, we can do that in our lives with things that goals that we want to achieve or conversations that we want to have in moving forward. So if you have that goal of like, okay, I want to publish a journal. So I'm going to go on and I'm going to start looking at some publishing houses for that. Well, guess what? In that process, I also found a place where I'm going to produce a deck of inspirational cards, right? And it just kind of happened by chance because I was looking at this thing, but I'm headed in this direction as a result of having some Vuja Day and looking at things from a slightly different perspective and being open to the possibilities.
Oh, exciting. I'm excited to do the Vuja Day. So you guys, we're going to have the link to that in the show notes. You can go grab that and create this exercise for yourself because I know it's going to be powerful and impactful and help you as you are looking to create more of those OMG moments. So exciting. Well, thank you so much for being on our show, Carrie. Any last little words you want to share with our audience here?
I would just say encouraging people to really tap into and not be afraid to share what makes you truly original and to really celebrate that originality because you cannot be an imposter if you're being yourself.
Love it, love it. You cannot be an imposter if you are being yourself because you are who you are. So we don't need to be someone else. We just need to
Right.
be who we are and put ourselves out there in the right way, be authentic and doing the things that you're meant to be doing. Those that like gut feeling that you get so many times and you're like, "Ugh, I feel like I should be doing this, but you're just so stuck and I can't. Take this as your message for today. Go out and create those moments, create your OMG moments. And Carrie, thank you so much for being on. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you.